Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Candace, and this is Cultivate with Candace, a place where we're going to grow together and explore ways to live a life centered on God. If you're a returner, thank you so much for coming back to join me again. And if you're new, welcome, and I hope you join me again. Today, our message is going to be talking about how we can live an abundant life in a world that is so overcome with a scarcity mindset, which can be very easy to accept and to latch onto, especially today with this world of always wanting more and more and more. So, the background for this message is going to be coming from Numbers 11, verses 4 through 35. And because this is a quite a big piece of text today, we're going to switch things up today. And instead of reading it right from the front, we're going to step through this text and talk about it as we go because I think it'll be more valuable that way. And so for the whole time period, we I will be reading out of the CSB version, the Christian Standard Bible, and you feel free to follow along in that version. It should also be displayed on the screen throughout the video. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to go ahead and read the first 5 verses. So we're going to read verses 4 through 9, and so we're going to go ahead and do that now. The riffraff among them had a strong craving for other food. The Israelites wept again and said, "Who will feed us meat? We remember the free fish we ate in Egypt, along with the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now our appetite is gone. There's nothing to look at but this manna." The manna resembled coriander seed, and its appearance was like that of bdellium. The people walked around and gathered it. They ground it on a pair of grinding stones or crushed it in a mortar, then boiled it in a cooking pot and shaped it into cakes. It tasted like a pastry cooked with the finest oil. When the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna would fall with it. Okay, so I've just read the first 5 verses, verses 4 through 9. And here we're getting a little bit of background about what's happening right now. So we see that the Israelites, this is happening probably about 20, 30 or so years into their time of wandering in the wilderness after they have left Egypt. And they're starting to reflect back on their time in Egypt and look at it with new eyes and starting to really crave more things, a better thing. They're tired of the manna. They want the food and the meat and all of the different melons and cucumbers and garlic and all the different spices that they had in Egypt. So they come to God and they complain. And the thing about manna was, as we read in verses uh, 8 and 9 and 7, that the manna fell on the camp like the dew. So this in itself is already a miracle. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I go outside every day, food is not falling from the sky. Any food that I want to eat, I have to go to the grocery store or the restaurant or to the fast food place and buy it myself. There's no food falling from me from heaven. And for the Israelites, this was very much not a common thing in that day either. Food did not just fall from the sky, but God was providing for his people in a way that was a miracle. But just like how we get sometimes when we are exposed to miracles every single day, it starts to become commonplace. So here in the United States, we are able to turn on running water and have heat and air for most of our in most places, most homes have those things. But when you look around at the rest of the world, that is not really a common thing. And so in our own lives, we can have these commonplace miracles that we see every day, and we start to think about it as not so important anymore. And so the Israelites were feeling that way, and they were complaining about this food that was literally falling from heaven. They were complaining that it was not meat, and they were starting to look back at their bondage with different eyes. So they had begged for God to deliver them out of slavery. It was obviously not a good time. Nobody wants to be a slave. They wanted to be delivered out of bondage. So God comes and delivers them and then feeds them with supernatural food, but then they decide that that's not enough and that they want more than that. And they start thinking about how things were so much better in the past. And I just want to say to you, any delicacies, anything that you had in your bondage, it can never compare to the freedom that you're going to have in Christ. So we can often look back on some of the good times we had in our past life, or things that we used to do in order to have fun, and think, man, I wish I could go back and do that again. But I want to say to you that it's never as good as you remember it to be. So that's something that a scarcity mindset will do to you a lot. It's going to really make you view your past, present, and future in ways that are not how they really are. So we're going to talk about the past for a little bit first. So when you think, so when you have a scarcity mindset, it really makes you view your past in a wrong way. You only remember the good things that happened and none of the bad stuff. You never remember what has actually happened. So just as the Israelites are doing, they're looking back at their slavery and they're only thinking about all the amazing food that they were eating, not about the long hours that they're working, not about the treatment that they had, and not about all of the times they cried out to God to save them. They're only remembering about the good things. And that's something that we can do in our lives today. In our present situation, maybe we're struggling and having a problem. So we look back on a situation that in the time when we were in it, we thought it was horrible. But now that we're out of it, we look back on it and we think, wow, I wish I could go back to that. So that's something that a scarcity mindset will have you to look at, and have you look at your past that way. Because you start thinking that, wow, I had so much more then. So why don't I go back to that place of abundance? So a scarcity mindset will have you look at your past and only see the good things. And it'll have you think the opposite of your present day. So it'll have you look at your present and you only see the bad things and none of the current blessings that you have. So the Israelites are walking through the wilderness. God is feeding them with food from heaven, and they're only seeing the bad thing, that they don't have the meat that they want, that they don't have onions and garlic and melons. But they're experiencing a miracle every single day. They don't even have to work for this food. They don't have to plant this food. They don't have to do anything for this food. It just falls from heaven every single day. But instead of focusing on that, they're deciding to focus only on the bad things. So that's really what a scarcity mindset will have you to do as well. Third thing that we want to talk about is a scarcity mindset will have you look at your future very narrow. And it has you to start thinking that your future is only going to look like how it does now, how your present looks like. So they're starting to think, instead of going back and thinking about how God had given them manna from heaven when they had complained in the past about that, when they complained and said they wanted food and God gave that to them, instead of going back to the God who gave them that food, they just start to complain, and they just start to believe that it will never get better. It'll always be like this. Instead of coming to God and saying and asking him, could he provide meat? And could he do that? They didn't, in the way that they were asking, they weren't really asking, they were just saying that nobody would give this meat to them. So that's really something that having that scarcity mindset will do. It really narrows your view of what's really happening, what has happened, and what will happen. Okay, so let's move on to the next couple of verses. We're going to go through 10 through 15 and see what Moses' response was to the Israelites after they cried out and complained about the food they were having. So let's start at verse 10. When Moses heard the people, family after family, weeping at the entrance of their tents, the Lord was very angry. Moses was also provoked. So Moses asked the Lord, why have you brought such trouble on your servant? Why are you angry with me? And why do you burden me with all these people? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give birth to them as you tell me? Carry them at your breast as a nanny carries a baby, to the land that you swore to give their fathers. Where can I get meat to give to all these people? For they are weeping to me. Give us meat to eat. I can't carry all these people for myself. They are too much for me. If you're going to treat me like this, please kill me right now. If I have found favor with you, and don't let me see my misery anymore. So we see that Moses is very distressed, as we can see from his response. And he is just kind of fed up with the people because they constantly complain, they're constantly not happy. And he's just basically saying to God that he cannot carry this by himself anymore, that it's too much. And he's really just noticing that there is a lack in his situation. So in this moment, Moses is kind of having a bit of a scarcity mindset as well, but he is coming to God and talking to God in his moment. So there's not really a problem if with noticing lack in your situation. It only becomes an issue when you don't seek the person who can provide abundance to you. So the Israelites were kind of just complaining um, out to God. They were kind of complaining to God, and they were just complaining. And they weren't really believing that God would change their situation. They were just coming to God and being upset. And Moses is doing a little bit of that too, but he's asking God to do something in this situation. Um, Not asking for a great thing, he's asking God to kill him if he can't deliver him. But he still is asking for something. The Israelites were not even asking for God to do anything really. They were just complaining and saying that he hadn't done what they wanted. And he realizes that he was not enough to deal with the people. But instead of simply complaining, he moved forward from that. So there's something that you can do to help you get out of that scarcity mindset. So the first thing that you probably will do, won't be that hard to do, is to complain. That's something that you're going to be doing anyway, probably. So you probably already did that. So you check that one off because you probably already did that. The second step that you can do is come and express your feelings to God. And so that's what Moses is doing now. He's expressing how he's feeling. He's feeling overwhelmed. He's feeling like he can't do this. And the third thing that you're going to do, you are going to pray and ask God to come and step into your situation and turn it around and give you what you need. And that's what he was finally doing in verse 15. I wouldn't advise you to pray in the same way that he is, to pray for the same thing that he's praying for in that moment. But the essence is still there, that he was still praying for God to come and do something for his situation. So when he does that, we'll see in verses 16 and 17, the Lord answered Moses, "Bring me 70 men from Israel, known to you as elders and officers of the people. Take them to the tent of meeting, having them stand there with you. Then I will come down and speak with you there. I will take some of the Spirit who is on you and put the Spirit on them. They will help you and bear the burden of the people so that you do not have to bear it by yourself." So there we see that God has stepped into Moses' situation and he's helping him and he's providing him that help that he needs. And now he has an abundance of help. He has 70 people now, 70 more people helping him to deal with this situation. And it just makes you think about what could have happened for the Israelites if they had decided to do the same. If they had decided to come to God and ask him for more provision instead of just complaining to him and not believing that he is a God that could provide them with more than they could ever need. So we'll see in verses 18 and 20, God didn't really let that slide of what the Israelites did. He tells in verse 18, "Tell the people, consecrate yourselves in readiness for tomorrow, and you will eat meat, because you wept in the Lord's hearing. Who will feed us meat? We were better off in Egypt. The Lord will give you meat, and you will eat. You will eat not for 1 day, or 2 days, or 5 days, or 10 days, or 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes nauseating to you. Because you have rejected the Lord who was among you and wept before him. Why did we ever leave Egypt?" So now God is saying, I'm going to give to you what you want. And I think about this in the terms of, I remember when I was a kid, a lot of times I would say to my mom, "I want more juice. I want more juice." And so she would give me the more juice that I said I wanted and I wanted forever. And then she'd give me a full cup of juice. And she knew I couldn't drink all this juice, but she would give me this full cup of juice because I kept saying, "I want this juice." And then she would say, "And now sit here at this table and you're going to drink all of this juice." And so when I got all that I wanted, it was too much and I didn't want it anymore. And I think that the Israelites are about to see that too, that the things that we ask of our parents that we think that we need and that we think that we want so badly, we are more often better off not getting those things. Because now God is saying, I'm going to give you so much meat that you're going to be sick of it. And you're not going to want to see even another piece of meat for a long, long time. And in verses 21 and 23, 21 through 23. So we'll move on to those verses. But Moses replied, I'm in the middle of a people with 600,000 foot soldiers. Yet you say, I will give them meat and they will eat for a month. If flocks and herds were slaughtered for them, would they have enough? Or if all the fish in the sea were caught for them, would they have enough? The Lord answered Moses, Is the Lord's arm weak? Now you will see whether or not what I have promised will happen to you. So now Moses is coming before God and he's doubting God. And he's saying, Lord, you've just said you're going to provide meat to over 600,000 people for a month straight. And he's just basically saying, I don't see how that's physically possible. I don't see how you can do that. And you might sit back and say, well, Moses, don't you see how God provides manna from the heavens every single day for all these people? Surely he could provide meat as well. But I think in a lot of times we have all been like Moses and all doubted God, even though we have seen him do many great things in the past. Because when we stay in that scarcity mindset, we're not thinking about everything that God has done. We're only thinking about what's going on right now and what we can comprehend. And so Moses did not understand how God was going to do that. But God's word does not ever return void, and he keeps every single promise that he ever makes to us. And when he says he's going to do something, it is just our job to have faith and expect him to come through. So we see in verse 23, God is just saying, you will see whether or not what I have promised will happen to you. So basically he's saying, I'll prove it to you. Because you don't believe, I will prove it to you, and you'll be able to see whether or not my word is going to come to pass or not. And that's really what we have to do. When we're in a situation and everything looks like it's not going to go our way and we don't understand how we even got to a situation and things don't look like it's going to turn our way, we can stand on God's word and we can say we know that his word won't return void to us. We don't have to know how it's going to happen, where it's going to come from, how he will do it, but we just have to know that what he says in his word, that's going to happen. And Moses had a moment right here where he was just not feeling that. So we'll move to verses 24 through 29. Moses went out and told the people the words of the Lord. He brought 70 men from the elders of the people and had them stand around the tent. Then the Lord descended in the cloud and spoke to him. He took some of the spirit that was on Moses and placed the spirit on the 70 elders. As the spirit rested on them, they prophesied, but they never did it again. Two men who had remained in the camp, one was named Eldad and the other one Medad. The spirit rested on them. They were among those listed, but they had not gone out to the tent, and they prophesied in the camp. A young man ran and reported to Moses, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Joshua, son of Nun, assistant to Moses since his youth, responded, Moses, my lord, stop them. But Moses asked them, are you jealous on my account? If only all the Lord's people were prophets and the Lord would place his spirit on them. Then Moses returned to the camp along with the elders of Israel. So we see right here that Moses is really having a very humble attitude. Um, he's from this time forward, he's kind of been the leader. He's kind of been the only one that God has been speaking through. There's not been other prophets among them in the camp because God has been using Moses as his mouthpiece. And now God has selected these 70 other people, and they are being used to do the things that Moses asked for. He asked for help, he asked for more. And because of that, he's getting that more. But people around him are saying, aren't you jealous? Aren't you worried that um, people are going to be used more than you? And I think a lot of times that happens in our world. We see other people, they have more followers on their Instagram page, they're reaching more people, they're having bigger impact, bigger outcome, all these things. And so we have the temptation to get jealous of them and to wonder, well, God, why isn't my thing happening like that? Why aren't you using me in this way? But the thing is, if we are all going forward for the same purpose, then we don't have to worry about whether somebody has more than you do. Because then all you see is that they're getting more and that they're going to be reaching people, and we're all reaching people for the same purpose, to bring people to Christ. And so Moses really saw that. And he said he wished that the Lord would place the Spirit on more people so that more work could go out and be done. When you have a scarcity mindset, you really are operating in a place of pride as well, because you think that you are the only one that should be able to do the things that you're doing. You think that you're the only one that can be successful in whatever you're doing. And so Moses did not act in that way. He was very humble, and he knew that God could use whoever he wanted to use to make sure that things were going in the way that they wanted them to go. And I believe that a lot of times when we have that abundance mindset, we are only looking to see God's plan go forth. And that's it. And when you look around and you see that other people are doing that, then nothing is scarce to you, because everybody is moving forward and making the kingdom of heaven grow more and more each day. So I want to encourage you, if you feel like you have been looking around and feeling like you don't have anything in this life, or you feel like you're lacking in every area of your life, I want you to refocus and possibly think about, is there an area of my life where I'm being prideful, or where I think that I'm the only one that needs to be doing something? It could be possible that you need more help than you think. And it could be possible that if you ask more people to help you, there will be a more abundant resource available to you so you can reach more people. And you have to also be ready when you do ask for that more. See, when Moses asked for more people to help him, if he was a prideful person and God had given him the more, he would not have seen this as a blessing. He would have seen it as a curse, because he would have seen, oh, well, the attention is off of me now. People aren't always just looking at me now. And he would have squandered the blessing that God had given him for with more people to share the burden. So when you do ask God for the more, make sure that you are in a good mindset, and make sure that you're not operating out of a prideful place, because that is when you could even block your own blessing and start to see your blessing as a curse instead of what it was meant to be. Okay, so we're going to move on and finish out the last bit of this. And so I'm going to go ahead and read verses 31 through 35, and we'll see what the result is of all of this. So, verse 31. A wind sent by the Lord came up and blew quail in from the sea. It dropped them all around the camp. They were flying 3 feet off the ground for about a day's journey in every direction. The people were up all that day and night and all the next day gathering the quail. The one who took the least gathered 50 bushels, and they spread them out all around the camp. While the meat was still between their teeth before it was chewed, the Lord's anger burned against the people, and the Lord struck them with a very severe plague. So they named that place Kibroth Hetava, which also means graves of craving, because there they buried the people who had craved the meat. From Kibroth Hetava, the people moved on to Hazeroth, which also means settlements, and remained there. So we see at the end of this, the Israelites have gotten the thing that they wanted. Um, but unlike Moses, they were not prepared for that more. They were not prepared to have this abundance of food. And the Lord was not pleased with what their mindset was on this. And so he allowed a plague to come upon these people, and many were killed. So the things that we crave are not always going to give us the result that we want. And that's especially going to be true if we're not in the right mindset to receive what God is giving to us. So, a good way to not be like this is to not allow yourself to focus on what you don't have more than what you do. Because they were so focused on the quail and were not content in their current situation, they did not take time to be thankful to God for him providing that manna every single day to them. And they thought that they needed more in order to be happy. But really, this was just showing to them that they were never going to be happy if they were always going to be looking for things to satisfy them. If they were not satisfied with God being with them and God providing for them in the way that He had, it didn't matter if they would have a gourmet meal or not, they would always find something to be dissatisfied about. And we can be the same way if we decide that we're going to operate in a mindset of that we don't have enough, or that we always need more things, or that we always have to get that new best thing. And I remember I've definitely had times in my life where I was like this. I think especially when I think about iPhones. So I had an iPhone, and you get an iPhone and it's great and it's awesome for the first year or so, and then they come out with another one. And then I wanted that one. And then all of a sudden, the phone that I had wasn't that great. And I would find different things about why it wasn't good, and why I needed to go and get this new phone. And so then you go and get the new phone. And then as soon as you get the new phone, there's another one coming out. And so that's a cycle that will continue and continue on. And capitalism thrives off of that, off of people always wanting the next biggest thing. But I want to say to you today that you can be content having whatever it is that you have today, and you can be content because God has already given you life, and life more abundantly. So God says to us in John 10:10, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus came to give us life, and life more abundantly. And that's a life that He's given to us today. And we don't have to buy it, and we don't have to go and swipe our card at the Apple Store to get it. He has already given that life to us. And we can step into that life by deciding to be content and thankful for what He's already given to us. When Moses was already content and thankful for what God gave to him, God was able to give more. And so I want to say in conclusion, an abundance mindset is going to be bred from thanksgiving, humility, and having that close relationship with God. When you're humble, you already feel like you already know what you deserve, and you already are in a good place because you're already in position to receive from God. And so, because you're receiving from God so regularly, you don't feel like you need more. And when you're close with God, you hear from Him and He's speaking with you, and you already know that He's going to provide for you whatever it is that you need. And when you're in a mindset of thanksgiving, you already want to be thankful. You already are looking around at all the things that you do have, and therefore you don't think about the things that you don't. So, some practical ways to foster this kind of mindset. I recommend keeping a list of things that God has done for you. I think if the Israelites had kept a more regular list of all the things that God did for them and read off this list every single day, I think it would have been a lot harder to think about the things that they didn't have. So I recommend you guys do that and keep that on your phone, keep it on a piece of paper, talk about it with friends, talk about it with anybody, just to remind yourself of everything that God has done. Talk about it as much as you can. And I also want to recommend that you guys be certain to look at the big picture of your situation and not just of what's going wrong with it. You know, maybe you're having a test this week and you have a big test in chemistry or something like that. And all you're doing is focusing on that. But I want you to maybe a good way to maybe look at a bigger picture of that is to be grateful that you're able to go to a school. There's a lot of people who are not able to go to school and they want to be able to go to school, but you're there and you're able to have that time and you're able to spend time focusing on bettering yourself. So that's just an example of a way that you can look at a bigger picture and get yourself back into a better mindset. Another thing, call out to God in your time of lack and trust that He's going to come through for you as He has done in the past. If the Israelites had decided to, instead of complain, but call out to God and ask Him for food and ask Him for meat, or even ask Him why He has not provided meat, because we see in the last bit of this chapter that after God provided that meat, great things didn't happen for them. So sometimes He has not given you something because it's not time for you to have it, or because it won't be good for you to have it. So just take that time to call out to God and ask Him why He has not provided, and ask Him to provide, and trust that He's going to provide or to explain to you why He has not. Um, Also, a great thing that you can do to try to help somebody else out, so you can not focus so much on yourself. I know whenever I'm having a time where things aren't going well for me, I always feel great when I can go out and serve somebody else and gives to somebody else, and be a light in someone else's situation, because it helps me to be reminded that things can be worse than what I'm going through right now, and that people are going through harder things than I'm going through right now. So find a way to serve somebody else. Find a way to get out there and help somebody else have a better situation for themselves. And last thing I want to say is just let go of these expectations that you have that are not backed up by God's promises. I know a lot of times we want things and we try to twist scripture to make it seem as though it's outlined in the word, and sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. But I just want you to with if you want something, I want you to go and search for that in scripture and see if you can find a word to stand on. Um, because I bet you that you can. And but there's certain things that when you ask for it, make sure you're asking with the right intentions and let go of the things that God has said no about. If you've asked God something and he's very clearly said to you no, then you don't need that thing. And you can move forward and know that God is giving you everything that you need to be successful in this time period of your life, and maybe it'll come later. So I just want you guys to really practice that and really try your best to get into an abundance mindset as much as you can, because it's really going to help you to start seeing your life in a much better light, and it's going to help you to see all the things that you already have that maybe you've been overlooking. So our reflection question today is going to be, how will you seek to live an abundant life today? And I invite you to guys, as always, to answer that in the comments if you feel led, or answer it with a conversation with friends or family or however else you would like to, or just reflect on it with your own self. Um, and I'd really appreciate you guys for watching this video, and I really hope that it's encouraged you and that you've got something out of it. Feel free to leave me comments or suggestions below. Leave me anything that you would like me to cover in the future. And I really appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.